Hey there, Amelia Mosley here with your last BTN episode of the term. Here's what's coming up. We find out about the race to rescue Aussie native fish. Meet some kids who are learning to solve the world's problems. And get some tips on how to stay safe from swooping magpies. All that soon. But first today to the bushfires which are still burning in parts of New South Wales and Queensland. The states have had their worst start to the fire season ever, and it's got Aussie authorities worried that there could be worse to come. Let's find out more.
Smoke filling the air, the landscape painted orange with flames. These were the terrifying scenes that confronted people in many communities along Australia's east coast last week.
It honestly looked like an apocalyptic scene. Like everyone was just packing up and leaving, and a lot of people were rushing together to try and figure out what's going on.
This was the worst ever start to New South Wales and Queensland's fire season. More than 130 fires burned across the states, destroying at least 26 homes.
At the time, we sort of had some stuff on standby, but we were racing around the house. My sister was grabbing the valuable, the memories type stuff, and then I was grabbing all my, it was all a team effort, but it was pretty scary because it was very real.
Of course, bushfires are not unusual in Australia. But this year is different.
I've never seen this before in recorded history. Fire weather has never been as severe this early in spring.
Some of the fires are also happening in unexpected places, like rainforests, which are usually, wet. See, in much of New South Wales and Queensland, winter rainfall has been much lower than usual. The red on this map shows below average, and the dark red is the lowest on record. While temperatures, they've been high. The orange here is above average. While really hot and dry years do sometimes happen, most experts agree that we'll be seeing a lot more of this in the future.
With an increasing temperature, with climate change, then what the scientists tell us is that events such as these will be more frequent and they will be much more ferocious.
Already this year, the world sweated its way through the hottest ever June. There were fires in typically cold places like Alaska, Siberia and Greenland, and the smoke could even be seen from space. Experts say authorities all around the world need to be prepared for stronger, more frequent fires. But ordinary people need to be ready too. That's what's happening here at Strathewen Primary School in Victoria. In 2009, the Black Saturday bushfires ripped through Strathewen, devastating the entire town.
We lost quite a few people that day, so it's good for kids to know now how to act, how to react if something like that comes through again, and I really hope it won't.
Now, they're working on their own fire plan that is designed by kids for kids. They say kids can play a really important role in preparing for bushfires, but often aren't included in plans.
Adults generally don't really listen to kids, so if we can tell them what we can learn at a young age, we can continue that through our life.
The students learn how fire danger warnings work and what to do in a fire. They then use this knowledge to teach other kids.
Tomorrow's fire danger rating is severe and a total fire ban. We put our bushfire survival bags in the car before we leave the school.
All around the world, people have experienced natural disasters like hurricanes, tsunamis, and so if they experience another terrible fire like Black Saturday, they can really know what to do. They can really take charge, get out safely, and be safe.
What's the highest fire danger rating in Australia? Is it extreme, catastrophic, or disastrous? It's catastrophic. Extreme used to be the highest, but an even higher rating was brought in after the Black Saturday bushfires in 2009. Now to the Darling River in New South Wales, where there was a massive rescue mission last week to save native fish. You might remember earlier this year when heaps of fish died in the Murray-Darling, and there are worries it could happen again this summer. Let's find out more. This is a big old fishing expedition in New South Wales. But don't worry, little guys, you're not going to end up on a plate. It's a rescue mission, a modern-day Noah's Ark. Except without the ark and the 2x2 thing and the flooding. I mean, fish like water, but you get the idea.
We managed to reach 100 fish in one day, so hopefully we can do that every day, and that would put us up around 400 fish for the week.
It's a massive effort to save as many fish as possible from what the New South Wales government has described as a fish Armageddon. Sounds ominous, and it kind of is. You might remember seeing pictures like this earlier in the year.
Another quite a large cod that's perished.
Up to 1 million fish died in parts of the Murray-Darling because of algal blooms, a type of bacteria that leaches the oxygen out of water.
Fish are like us, they need oxygen, and as that water quality deteriorates, often oxygen is something that gets depleted, and as that disappears, so basically, the fish will more or less suffocate.
The algae grows when that water isn't flowing properly, and scientists say it's one of the signs of a river system in crisis. The Murray-Darling stretches all the way from Queensland through New South Wales and the ACT, then down to Victoria and South Australia. And it's Australia's biggest and most important river system, bringing life to the hot, dry centre of the country. The farms here provide about a third of Australia's food supplies, and a lot of them are irrigated with water taken from the river. But for decades, there have been arguments between states, farmers and towns over how the water is shared around, especially in times of drought. States downstream have accused states upstream of taking too much water out for growing things like cotton and nuts, and leaving others without enough water and hurting the river. That's why in 2007, Australia's government created a plan to take care of the river and an agency to oversee it. But some say it hasn't worked. In the past few weeks, there have been protests along the river, with some farmers saying they're being left to suffer with no water even though the river is flowing, and that the water still isn't being shared fairly. Some experts also reckon the Basin Plan hasn't done enough to protect the river from the effects of climate change. The Basin Authority says that's not true, and the federal government says it's the drought that's causing the problems and only rain can fix it. In the meantime, the New South Wales government has announced a $10 million fish rescue package to try to make sure what happened last summer doesn't happen again. So that's why the whole Noah's Ark thing is going on. Hundreds of native fish like golden perch and Murray cod, some up to 25 years old, are being scooped up and relocated. Our fishy friends will go to other, healthier parts of the river or to hatcheries where they'll be cared for until the water starts flowing again. While many are hoping it'll help, others say a lot more needs to be done to save the river and everything and everyone that depends on it.
The world's oil supply has been hit with a very big blow. Drone attacks at 2 Saudi Arabian petrol processing plants caused huge fires that turned the sky red in the nearby city of Abqaiq. This is what the smoke looked like from space. Saudi Arabia is the biggest exporter of petroleum in the world, and the fires knocked out half of the country's entire production. And while they're under control now, experts reckon there'll be a big jump in petrol prices around the world. While there's some debate over who's behind the attack, rebels in nearby Yemen say they did it as payback for Saudi Arabia's involvement in a war that's going on there. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has visited the Bahamas. People in the region are cleaning up the damage left behind by deadly Hurricane Dorian. A lot of them are staying in shelters because many houses have been completely destroyed. Mr. Guterres says that seeing the destruction was horrifying, and he's asking the international community to help the Bahamas and work together to stop climate change.
If we don't reverse this situation, we'll see tragedies like this one multiplying and becoming more and more intense.
And loads of people headed to the tiny South Australian town of Lucindale on the weekend for Triple J's One Night Stand Music Festival. Lucindale is usually home to just 500 people, but 15,000 were there for the free event.
It's very weird because it's like normally like really small. There's like when I'm driving into Lucindale, you only come across like one car, and like now you've got like 20 or more.
They were treated to some top Aussie acts and some pretty special moments, like when G Flip invited her dad up on stage.
I'd like to welcome my dad, Mr. Flip!
Then there was Ocean Alley teaming up with Meg Mac for Partner in Crime. And of course, the Hilltop Hoods had the crowd dancing through to the end of the night.
Let's go, let's go, let's go! Come on, big girls, we met you with the bus stop. So throw your hands up, throw your hands up.
There's been a lot of talk recently about e-cigarettes. While you're not allowed to buy them if you're under 18, there are worries that a growing number of young people are using them. And some health experts are worried there could be some serious health risks that we don't even know about yet. Over in the US, it's led the state of New York to announce a ban on flavoured e-cigarettes. Check it out.
When they go for the respiratory system, chronic lung diseases like emphysema leave their victim fighting for every breath.
Yep, this is really gross. And it's meant to be. Over the years, the Australian government's paid for ads like this to teach us about the dangers of smoking. And it's mostly worked. The number of kids and young people smoking has been falling for years. Now just 1% of 12 to 17-year-olds in Australia smoke daily. But there are worries that more young people are picking up a different habit.
1 in 10 young people in Australia have tried an e-cigarette. And of those, 1/3 had used an e-cigarette in the past month.
E-cigarettes first came on the scene in the noughties. They don't contain tobacco or some of the other chemicals that are in cigarettes, and some people say it's helped them quit smoking. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're safe, which is why Australia has strict laws about them. They're only allowed to be sold to people over 18. It's also illegal in Australia to sell vaping juice that contains nicotine. That's the poisonous chemical in cigarettes that makes them addictive. They're not allowed to be advertised either. But there are worries that packaging and the flavours make them appealing to kids.
If you were to put them next to lollies or packages for popcorn, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So the vials are very, very colourful. They're really enticing towards the adolescents and young adults.
Many see that as a big problem. Experts say there's a lot we don't know about the health effects of vaping. Recently in the US, there have been lots of reports of people getting lung diseases, which some think are related to vaping. They have different laws over there about e-cigarettes, and while it's not known exactly what caused so many people to get sick, America's Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, is planning to ban the sale of all flavoured e-cigarettes, except for the ones that are tobacco flavoured. Authorities say it's to protect young people.
We have a problem in our country. It's a new problem. It's a problem that nobody really thought about too much a few years ago, and it's called vaping. Especially vaping as it pertains to innocent children. And they're coming home and they're saying, "Mom, I want to vape."
Back in Australia, there are no changes planned to e-cigarettes, but experts say the best advice is to simply stay away.
You're about to meet some kids who spent last week trying to save the world. They were taking part in the World Peace Games. It's a very special sort of board game that was invented by a teacher from the US who's showing that kids are actually really good at solving the world's biggest problems. Here's Liv.
What do we want? Tensions are on the rise in Indian-controlled...
The news can be full of complicated problems.
Hong Kong has suspended all flights and the future outlook of the Great Barrier Reef. Hurricane Dorian.
You might wonder, how do we even begin to solve these issues?
Iran's capital, Tehran.
How do we stop people fighting?
China's just made it clear.
And how do we create world peace? They're questions that top world leaders struggle to deal with pretty much every day. But what if I asked you to find the answers? Well, I'm not going to ask you to do that, but this guy might.
I'm John Hunter, the inventor of the World Peace Game and actually the CEO of the World Peace Game Foundation.
The World Peace Game is kind of like a board game, but it's also way more than that.
Oh my, the World Peace Game is a gigantic structural geopolitical simulation. And essentially, we have a number of different countries pitted against each other in every way, politically, socially, militarily, and economically. And they're pitted against each other on 4 different levels: outer space, aircraft level, ground and sea, and undersea level. And the children who are playing these roles of cabinets and agencies in the world have to sort through all of this chaos and actually create solutions to solve some of the world's toughest problems.
At the beginning of the game, the participants get detailed documents explaining the problems they have to solve and get assigned different roles within the game.
Minister of Defence.
There's Prime Ministers, Chief Financial Officers, and a heap of different staff in organisations like the United Nations and the World Bank. And then they have to work together to figure it all out.
I don't know if it's big enough. A way to solve that is to all work together.
So basically, each country has a budget from the beginning, and you win the game by each country's budget being higher than before, and all 23 crises solved.
John says he came up with the game when he first started working as a teacher and had to teach his students about what was going on in Africa.
I thought, how am I going to do that? It's a very complex place. But I thought I'd make a game of it.
Since then, it's grown to include problems facing the entire world.
We have everything from ethnic and religious and minority rights and problems, religious struggles. We have breakaway republics. We have water and famine issues. We have poverty. We have pollution. We have fishing rights issues. Everything we have in the world, cyber warfare, all of that is in the World Peace Game. We just sort of rip it from the headlines and modify it appropriately for children. And in a bloodless way, they always, always, always save the world.
John says that while it is possible to lose the game, that's never happened. And he reckons it shows that kids are actually pretty amazing at this stuff. And while it's difficult, these guys say it's really fun.
So it's helping me to understand more of the values and things you need to learn for life.
I think it's a big challenge to solve the problems in the world. Obviously, there's a lot more problems than just on this game board behind me. It's the best feeling in the world when you solve a crisis and everyone's like jumping around like, yay, we solved a crisis.
It's solved!
I think for generations to come, this is going to be the game that is helping to bring up new leaders and all people who want to help save the world.
Did you know Malala Yousafzai was the youngest person ever to win a Nobel Peace Prize? She was 17 when she was awarded for her work promoting girls' education, although 16-year-old Greta Thunberg has been nominated this year, so there could be a new record.
Australia has missed out on an Ashes outright win, going down to England in the last test. An impressive batting performance by the English left the Aussies chasing a huge 399 to win, but they didn't get off to a good start. It was time for another match-saving knock from Steve Smith right until this. Matthew Wade provided a glimmer of hope for Australia, scoring his 4th century, but spinners Jack Leach and Joe Root were too much for the Aussie batsmen. No big deal though. The series was tied, meaning that the Ashes trophy is staying with us. Phew. And the Boomers have been out-boomed, falling to France in the bronze medal match at the FIBA World Cup. Paddy Mills got off to a flyer for Australia, and with Joe Ingles cooking early too, the Boomers had one hand on the bronze. But French star Nicolas Batum had other ideas.
For the second time in the quarter, Batum has scored for France.
And this last quarter dagger from Andrew Albisi meant that the Aussies had to settle for fourth. Again. Enough of this losing business though. Aussie star Liz Cambage has advanced to the WNBA semi-finals. The Las Vegas Aces defeated the Chicago Sky on the back of Cambage's 23 points, 17 rebounds and 6 blocks. But it was this final second play from Diarra Hamby that secured the Aces win.
Finally today, as you know, spring is here. And in Australia, that means having to be on the lookout for swooping magpies. While they're only trying to protect their nests, they can be a serious hazard. So Matt found out what you can do to protect yourself.
One day I was going for a walk. I went through the park and they kept on swooping me. And I started running and they stole my hat.
They were going really fast. It was a pretty big one as well. It just came from behind us and got us on the back of the head.
And it hit our helmets and it kind of hurt. Yeah, I was really scared.
All of a sudden my magpie flew down and swooped my hat. So I got a branch and I started waving, scaring the magpies away by waving the branch. And when I stopped, thought it was safe, they swooped down again and they scratched my head multiple times until I ran out of the vicinity of their area.
Yeah, we've all got an upsetting magpie story. They beat the Tigers by 39 points in last year's preliminary final. One of the toughest days of my life. Sometimes I hate September.
Yeah, it scarred me mentally and physically.
Me too, Marco. Me too. Except he's talking about magpie season, spring. It's the time of year when baby magpies start hatching, and it's thought adult magpies, particularly daddy magpies, are a little protective of their chicks. And they must worry that us two-legged predators are trying to eat them or something. But we're not. Probably. Anyway, magpie season usually lasts for about 6 weeks, so if you spend a lot of time outside, you should probably be on the lookout around now for an angry magpie or two, because these birds can be really dangerous. People have reported being cut and bruised or even suffering really serious eye injuries.
Aggressive, mean. No, they don't really sneak up on me. They're very loud, but you don't know which direction they're coming from. Yeah, so you hear them, you know they're coming, but you don't know where they're from though.
And if you've ever felt like there's a certain magpie that just really hates you, you may be right. These birds are really smart. A Queensland study found magpies can recognise faces and remember who they've encountered before. So what can you do about magpies? Well, experts say one of the best ways to avoid being attacked is to stay away from dangerous locations entirely. But if you can't avoid them, apparently dressing and acting weirdly, really weirdly, with masks and stuff can help discourage attacks. And these guys have a few extra tips of their own.
In reality, just run, bolt off. And maybe have sharp objects if they come. Yeah.
If you're walking around, maybe use an umbrella or something to protect you from getting swooped. Before you go, make sure you check areas that may have magpies in them, not visit there, or maybe put zip ties on your helmet.
Yep, cable ties and drawing or sticking eyes on the back of your helmet might scare them away. Generally doing things that will protect you, like wearing a hat, sunglasses and getting off your bike if you're riding, are all good ideas too. Alternatively, you could just stay indoors and re-watch the 2017 AFL Grand Final.
Go Dusty, go boys! Here we go.
Oh, Matt. Well, that's it for this week and this term. Now, because it's our last episode for the term, there won't be any Ask a Reporter this week. But there will be Newsbreak episodes every weekday, so you can stay up to date with the news over the holidays. And of course, you can always jump on our website or our YouTube channel if you're 13 or over. Have an awesome break, and I will see you very soon. Bye.